Hi there, this is Hayden Watkins of Watkins Genealogy Consultancy. In this video, we're going to look at the New South Wales Birth, Deaths and Marriages website, which is a key source of information for budding family historians. In particular, we're going to cover how to access the website, how to navigate the search parameters, and how to identify the correct entry and then extract some valuable information without having to pay a cent. Okay, let's get to it. I've got my search bar up on my screen, and I'm going to start by typing in the acronym for the New South Wales Birth, Deaths and Marriages Registry, which is NSW BDM. This makes things much easier, though either method of spelling will bring up the correct search results. Now that we have our search results up, I'm going to look for the little red and blue New South Wales government icon on the link at the top, which will tell me that I've got the right website. I'll click on that. Once the website is open, I'm going to scroll down the page just a bit and click on the blue button here, which will take me to where we can find the search indexes we're looking for. Okay, this is the page where the magic happens. You can see that there are now 3 options before me, which are the births, deaths and marriages indexes. I'm going to start with the birth index, and luckily for us, all 3 searches work essentially the same way, so once you're familiar with one, you'll be familiar with all of them. Okay, so each of the boxes you see here are actually the search parameters. It might look a bit confusing at first, but we'll go one step at a time. Starting with the very top, we are asked if we know the registration number of the record we're looking for. By default, this is no, and it's best that we leave it that way for now. Below that, you'll see that it mentions the boxes marked with an asterisk are mandatory, so you cannot complete a search without having entered data into those mandatory fields. Now we've come to the first parameter here, the family name. This is a mandatory field, as you can see the asterisks, so we'll have to fill this one out every time we enter a search. I haven't mentioned that yet we'll be using Sir Edmund Barton as sort of a case study for this video. So here we're wanting to find his birth record, and we'll start by typing his surname into the box. Now that step is done, the next 2 boxes don't have the asterisks, so they're not necessary. However, in this circumstance, we're going to put Edmund's first name into the given box. If we left this field blank, once we submit our search, it would successfully go through. However, we would be inundated with records of every person with the surname Barton, so we don't want to worry about that right now. So next we have the parent boxes. So there's 2 pairs and they're asking for the names of the mother and the father. You'll see that these fields aren't mandatory, so I'm going to leave them for now. Under the event details, we'll ignore the top question and instead look at date of event range. Unless you know the exact date of birth, you should leave this option as a yes. Leaving it that way means you can select 2 dates to search between, which allows broader and more customizable parameters for your search results. Finally, the date. This is the last section of the search, and it is an important one because it is a mandatory field, just like the surname earlier. Before we start entering information, I want to point out that we can only search for birth records that are over 100 years old. This is to protect the privacy of still living people. Okay, so we're searching for Edmund Barton, and for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to pretend like I can't remember the exact year he was born, and instead I'm going to say that I only know that he was born sometime in the 1840s. So with that knowledge in mind, I'm going to enter 1840 into the 3rd box in the date event from field. You can see that the day and the month are automatically set to the 1st of the 1st, so you don't need to bother with those boxes much. Next, I'm going to input 1849 in the equivalent box for the date of event 2 field. And you can see that the day and month are pre-filled, so that now we are searching records which span the entire length of the 1840s. The final bar, which asks us for district details, can be completely ignored for now. So let's press search and see what comes up. Okay, so I've hit the search the first time and it's just taken me to the top of the same screen. Sometimes this happens, it's a bit of a glitch, so just scroll down and enter the search again, and then it'll go through. Okay, we've successfully completed the search, and keep in mind that we only used the 4 parameters, which are the first and surname and the 2-year entries. We can see that there is only one result which has appeared, so let's investigate that. The name matches our search parameters, so that's a good sign. But what else can we get out of this result? And how much can we confirm this Edmund Barton is the same Edmund Barton that we are searching for, and not another man with the same name? Well, let's look at the registration number. It looks like a fairly random code that doesn't have any meaning, which is partially true. There is one important detail which we can extract from the code, and that is the 4 numbers which come after the /. 1849 is the number there. If that sounds like a year to you, it's because it is. The 4 digits after the slash represent the year in which the event was registered by a government official. So in almost every scenario, save for events that happen in late December and then were registered in early January of the next year, the year represented here is consistent with the year that the event actually took place. Therefore, we have just extracted an important piece of information from this otherwise meaningless code. Now, I know that the Edmund Barton we are looking for was born in 1849, so confirming the year in this way helps me to confirm whether this really is the Edmund Barton I'm looking for. Now let's turn our attention to the 2 next pieces of information here, which are the given names of the mother and father attached to the birth record. I know that these 2 names correspond with Sir Edmund Barton's parents, so these are another confirmation that this record is indeed the correct one. Now, remember we didn't enter the name of Edmund's parents. So if we were researching someone for the first time, this might be the very first time we actually see the names of their parents, which can revolutionize your research as it grants access to information about the generation above, and in doing so opens up a lot of research opportunities. Sometimes when one parent is absent or unknown, the details are not recorded and the space is left blank. So finally there's the district, which tells you where in the state the record was registered. You can see here that an acronym, CJ, is in its place. With older records, such as this one in the early and mid 1800s, these acronyms are very common. However, in more modern records, the acronyms are replaced with suburbs, which are more immediately understandable to us. I'm going to show you how to find what the acronym stands for, and to do so, I'm going to open a new tab on my browser and type in NSW BDM acronyms. And just a quick note, sometimes that doesn't work, and instead you can search early church records and district codes. Either way, you should at the top see that blue and red New South Wales government icon. So click on that, and then it will take you to a web page which shows our alphabetical list. We're looking for CJ, so we can click on C, scroll down to where it says CJ, and it will tell us that that actually stands for St. James in Sydney. Returning to our previous tab, I will explain the last detail, which is the PDF availability. What this tells you is whether or not the PDF file is readily available to access if the record is purchased with an online delivery. If it reads readily available, such as here, that means you will have an expedited access to the PDF file, whereas when it says unavailable, which is more often than not the most common, that means the certificate needs to be physically scanned and uploaded by a staff member of the New South Wales Government, so it can take up to 2 weeks to receive the PDF in your email. If you wish to purchase the certificate and have it sent to you in person, then you don't need to worry about this. It's only for people who are buying the PDF version of the certificate. Now we've had a good overview of how to understand the search results, I'm going to take a moment to play around with a few different examples to show you how all those search parameters work together. After that, we'll look at the search results for the marriage records. I'm going to select Modify Criteria at the bottom to change the search parameters, and this time I'm going to remove the name Edmund from the first name field. Once I've done that, I'm going to again select Search from the bottom and see how that has changed our search results. You can see that there are now a lot of records, 6 pages in fact. And that's because by removing the first name, we have now done a general search of anyone with the surname Barton, born in New South Wales in the 1840s. This is such a broad search that it probably won't help us much, but one thing I'll point out is that you can sort the results alphabetically by clicking the category titles above. We're going to go back to the search parameters again, and we're going to leave the first name blank, but instead add the names of Edmund's parents, William and Mary, to their respective fields. We'll then hit search again. Now there are only a handful of results, and we can see that down the bottom Edmund is there. Interestingly, we can see that most of the other results share a lot of similarities to Edmund's, with the same surname, Barton, the same parent's name, and the same region. What this suggests is that there's a good chance that these people are Edmund's siblings, and in this circumstance I can tell you for sure that they are indeed some of his siblings. So that is a way to find the siblings of a historical person. Let's return to the search parameters once again. We'll leave the results as is, except this time, let's change the date range to a wider search. Let's say 1820 to 1855, a 30-year time span. Now we have even more record hits, and a lot of them, again, share similarities with Edmund's record, except we can see that they were born in the 1820s and 30s by the year after the backslash. Now that what we've found is the majority of Edmund's siblings, as including him there were 11 in number. To finish with the births category, I will say that as a person's name can sometimes be misspelled, it is worth a while to play around with a few different searches if your first search isn't fruitful. Sometimes parents' names are misspelled, and I recommend that usually only search using one parent's name and choose the parent whose name is more common and thus least likely to be misspelled on the record. Now let's move on to the marriage search. This one operates on much the same principles as the birth search, but with some minor variations, so it will be easy to understand for the most part. First, to return to the home screen, select home at the top left of the page, then we'll select marriages on the right hand side, and we'll quickly note that the marriage search includes up to, but not after 50 years ago, again for privacy concerns, so you won't be able to find recent marriages here. Once we have it open, you'll see that there are some changes to the layout, such as this time there is no option to input parental names, but instead there are two identical search options, one for the groom's name and one for the bride's name. Now a quick note would be that although both the bride's surname and the groom's surname boxes are marked with an asterisk, you only need to enter one surname to be able to successfully complete a search. I'm going to enter just Barton into the groom's surname and leave the rest blank. Aside from these details, you'll find that the rest of the process is nearly identical to the birth search. In the event date section, I'm going to show you a different way to input a date, because this time I'm going to select no under date of event range, and this will change the field to only have one date to enter, and for this you must already know the exact day of the event. I know Barton was married on the 28th of December 1877, so I'm going to input that date here, and then let's hit search to see the results. Now we have the result, let's take a brief overview of what we can see. Firstly, you'll notice that the code is on the left hand side now, and then take note that both participants in the marriage are listed, with the bride's maiden name being included. And lastly, you'll see that the district is no longer an acronym and simply reads Newcastle. Remember that this is because the district acronyms were only used during the earlier decades of the 1800s. Going back to the start, I want to point out that the year listed after the / is actually 1878, despite the fact that I entered the date of the marriage as the 28th of December 1877. This is because, like I mentioned earlier, the year after the slash represents the year of registration. And because the wedding took place right at the end of 1877, and it took a few days for it to be registered by a government official, the new year had begun, and thus it is 1878 instead of 1877. Aside from the code, we can see that Edmund Barton married Jane M. Ross in Newcastle, so the results are fairly straightforward. I won't demonstrate here how different search queries can result in different outcomes, but I instead encourage you to play around with entering different details to learn how the system works and therefore how to best utilize it. Now that we have looked at the marriages, we'll return to the homepage and select deaths. Death records are accessible after 30 years, so you'll find that death records are much more available, with the most recent records dating to the mid-1990s. When we open the death record search, we can see that it looks identical to the birth record search. So the same tricks and tips that I discussed earlier in the section about births apply to the death records too. I'll demonstrate for the last time my search for Edmund Barton's death record. We've now reached the end of this tutorial video. Please note I have pasted a direct link to the New South Wales Birth, Deaths and Marriages Registry in the video description, as well as a link to the early church district acronyms. I recommend that you bookmark these for quick and easy access. I hope you have found this tutorial useful and informative. Let me know of your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. For more upcoming tutorials and some more exciting video content, please remember to subscribe to my channel. Until next time, thanks for watching.